Do you think there's an a push or a feeling in the last several years? I don't know how you define several. That parents feel like they're supposed to be their kid's friend. Do you see that a
Um,
lot?
I see that a lot. I do. Kind of back to what we were speaking about before, that they don't want their kids to be mad at them. And a lot of and life is so busy that you want every moment with your children to be wonderful.
Right.
You want to be buddies. You want to be, as we were saying, they need parameters. They need boundaries. And it's their job to push against them. And fingers crossed, I know this now. Fingers crossed, they will push against them so that they can fall back to them, because it doesn't really. If it's just following orders blindly, it doesn't work. But if they
Right.
can push and come back to it, they will do it. But they need you to be their parent. You could be their friends later in life. It'll happen. But when they're so confused in their immature little minds, no matter how old their immature little minds are, it's
Sure.
really hard for them to navigate this world. They need a rudder, and you need to be their rudder.
Welcome to the Permission to Heal podcast. I am Marcy Brockman. Together, we will discover what brings us healing, meaning, and true joy. You only need your own permission to begin. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Permission to Heal. In today's episode, I have a conversation with Mary Kerwin, discussing parenting and how to raise our kids. She is a parenting coach, a family coach. She has a company called Confident Kids. Mary is a mother of four. She's a doting grandmother, a teacher turned coach with more than 40 years in education. She is well versed in the latest trends, neuroscience, and the psychology of parenting. Mary founded Confident Families, which has now become Confident Kids, to help parents become confident leaders for their kids so they can improve the quality of life for themselves and their families. She is committed to a higher quality of service and professionalism to nurture happy, confident, and successful children that will be tomorrow's leaders. Mary lives in New York City with her husband of 45 years and enjoys spending time with her grandson, and just found out that her daughter is expecting another baby. So we had a conversation about defiant children and temper tantrums and homework, managing homework, and how to help parents build their parenting muscle and set up boundaries and teach their kids resilience, and how to prepare for the school year coming up. So if you're a parent or you know someone who is, stay tuned. This is going to be the episode you're not going to want to miss. And as always, thank you for tuning in. And please, if you like the episode, please consider sharing with several of your friends and leaving us a review and a comment. Thanks so much. Hi, I'm so excited to share with you the new Permission to Heal bookshop on bookshop.org. We all know how important it is to support our local and independent bookshops, and I've created a podcast dedicated bookshop on bookshop.org. So just follow along with me at Permission to Heal bookshop on bookshop.org. The link will be attached to the post, and you can have access to the entire catalog of books by my expert guests. You can just click and order from the independent bookshops and support everyone. It's pretty awesome. I've also put a bookshelf with my own Permission to Land books on it, and all sorts of books for inspirational help and books that I love. So join me on bookshop.org with the bookshop, the Permission to Heal bookshop. afternoon. Good afternoon, Mary. How are you today?
I am very well. Good afternoon to you also, and good afternoon to everyone who's listening, if it's
Yes, yes.
still
Good
afternoon in their
afternoon,
realm of the
good
world.
morning, good evening, wherever you're listening, whenever you're listening. Um, yeah, we're recording this and it's still summer vacation. Mary's a retired teacher. I'm still an in service teacher. Just trying to enjoy the last few weeks of summer. Um, so, Mary she was just telling me before we started, she's the mom of four, and she has one grandchild and another one on the way. Congratulations.
Thank you.
That's
Doting
super
grandma
fun.
would be, would,
Doting
would,
grandma.
would be an apt description.
Is there any other kind? I don't know.
I don't know.
I hope
I
not.
did not think that would be it for me, but yes, it is. So maybe not.
You didn't think that would be it for you?
I didn't think I would be so doting. I didn't. I had four kids of my own. I
Yeah.
taught especially the last about 15 years of my teaching career was in early childhood with the little ones, and I loved every minute of it.
Right.
So I thought that,
Been here, done that.
I thought that I would not that I wouldn't love them to death, but that I wouldn't be the kind of grandma I am.
It's hard, I think, to not be when your baby has a baby.
Oh, yeah, it's true.
That's amazing.
It's true.
So you are retired from teaching after more than 30 years in a classroom and are now a parenting coach,
Yes, ma'am.
parenting children and parents, the whole family system. Why don't you tell us a little bit about you, where you came from, how you became a teacher, what your passion about that was or is?
Wow. So
Too
I
many
guess I
questions at
never,
once, but.
I always seemed to want to have been a teacher. I was that little kid. I was the youngest of six, and I was the kid who, when my older siblings, because there was my brother and myself. My brother was 13 months older, and then there was an 11-year span, and there were four older kids in my family.
Wow.
And when they would come home from work or school, I would always sit them down and play teacher with them. My family likes to say it's because I was bossy, but I like to just say I like to impart my knowledge on everyone else, and so in my mind, I've always been a teacher. It's always been a passion of mine. Tried out a couple of other things, but they just didn't fill me that way. And so when I went through schooling, I went to get my educational degree, and I graduated from Hunter College in New York. Well, because I'm a dinosaur, back then it was a minor in education and a
Okay.
major in English and language arts. But the whole time I had my ed courses, for every hour of ed credits, I had an hour in the classroom, and I loved it. And I
Wow.
loved it. And
What a great way to do it.
yeah, it was called a Teaching Tomorrow's Teachers program. I don't think they still have it, but it was a great introduction into the world of teaching, because so many people think they want to be teachers and go through all their curricula and get out and think that, oh my
Yeah, the
gosh, what am
first
I doing
time
this
that you're
for?
in a classroom is when you do
Yes,
your student teaching
right.
practicum, and you have finished your degree by then.
So far, yeah, yeah.
Sometimes within the course of my regular duties, I volunteer to be a cooperating teacher for student teachers, and um, about half of them have decided not to be teachers.
No,
You
yeah.
know, a couple of them, it was their choice. They realized it wasn't the right fit. One of them,
Didn't
God
have it.
love her, just couldn't pass the certification exams. She was really great with connecting students, but just didn't have the, I don't know what the word is I'm looking for. She didn't have the curriculum knowledge, the English background to be able to answer the questions she needed to do. So
That's too bad.
whatever.
That's a shame.
And
I
she had
and
spent
I
all of this money and all this time on a 4-year degree teaching her to do this. So
Yeah,
anyway,
yeah, that's it.
not for
Yes.
everyone.
So yeah. So anyway, that's yeah. So teaching was my thing, and I taught in a couple of different ways and grades. I started an early childhood. Well, I came into a parent cooperative early childhood program at one point. I taught third grade at one point. I taught um, 2 minutes in eighth grade. Um,
Eighth grade's a
uh,
hard year.
it was not my forte. But I thought I was terrible, which was why I didn't want to do it again. But as it turned out, the kids who had me would come back to see me. So I guess I wasn't as terrible as I thought I was.
Definitely not.
but I was in school and teaching in what I call the prime part of education, where our emphasis was on the whole child. You educated the whole child. It wasn't,
Mm-hmm.
and as I went on, I saw it just leave that. It became more and more the emphasis was on the grade, the
Mm-hmm.
passing of the test, because everything is assessed. The kids get assessed for everything they do. The teachers get assessed for what the kids do. The school gets assessed for what the teachers do, and that's where the money goes. Um,
Yeah, I think people who are not in education feel like it needs to be we need to assess how it's working, and the only way they assess is numerically through some sort of grade, and that doesn't work. You
well, they
can't
haven't.
assess a human being's development that way.
They're not robots. They're not and the assessment should be from where they are to how far they've come,
Mm-hmm.
not on the end product. There's no the end product is, we're all works in progress. The end product is still going on even for us.
Absolutely.
And so, and anyway, so I spent a lot of time in early childhood, which became first, kindergarten, first grade, second grade. They wanted everything done when they were 4,
Mm-hmm.
because the study came out that their kids' brains are all formed by the time they're 5. But that doesn't mean that you give them. That means you give them the skills and the readiness activities, not necessarily the curriculum.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, they're not doing calculus at 5.
yeah, well, yeah. So I actually went to a meeting where the person who was the speaker said, we are, for 3 and 4 year olds, we are preparing them for college. No, I'm not. I'm preparing them for the next step. Not, let's
No,
not
we're
get
preparing them for kindergarten. We're not
even that
preparing
we're
them.
preparing them to get through the next 3 days. We're preparing them for a lot of things, but
Right.
and eventually this prepares them for college. But that's a giant leap instead of the baby steps, which is
Yeah,
what we should be taking.
and not everyone's college bound. But then again,
And that's another. That's a whole
that's a
other
whole other
discussion.
story. Right,
Unfortunately,
right.
two teachers talking together, we can get into this forever. But anyway, so
Yeah.
I retired. I'll fast forward. I retired reluctantly, and kind of lost my identity. I was a teacher for so long. I always wanted
Uh-huh.
to be a teacher, and I wasn't a teacher. And so I was a certified health coach, which was lovely, but not filling my soul. Like, I knew that there was something I was missing. So I started my company, which was called Competent Kids now.
Mm-hmm.
And I had my clients, which makes me laugh. My kids were those lacking in confidence, those that this kind of got beaten down and had no faith in themselves or what they can do. And we would use it. I would see them in person and use experiential activities that they like to build their confidence. And then COVID hit, and there went that.
Right.
Uh, I don't feel right doing it on online, virtual experiences, not experience. So anyway, what came out of it through the urging of the parents of the kids I used and some mentors that I had and a coach was that I moved to the parents and realized quickly again that I really did this all the time. This wasn't it's
This
just
wasn't a new thing.
a little shift in focus and that a confident kid needs a confident parent and giving them and my gut my bottom line is you are good parents, you know what's best for your kids. We just have to help you find that confidence in yourself, and then the world will be a better place.
One family at a time. Yes.
One day at a time,
One day at a time. Yeah.
one
So
moment at a time sometimes. Yeah.
so I was doing some research through your website, and you had an interesting Frederick Douglass quote on the front of it. It said, "It is easier to build strong children than repair broken men." I thought maybe you would reflect on that a bit.
So that came out of a discussion I had with one of the parents, and I think it's a misconception sometimes, and there are all different ideas and different ways to do parents. But when you lack confidence and you're wishy-washy in what you're doing with your kids, they feel like they don't have that sense of security,
Mm-hmm.
and they're kind of in a boat floating without a course in the sea.
Mm-hmm.
And that was during there was a really there still is, but and I'm not saying there's a for positive parenting
Right.
where you have to be people feel they have to be perfect all the time. They can't, raise their voice to the kids. They can't be short with their kids. They can't be human, basically.
Right.
And when they do, they're they're ruining their kids for life. And my take is that sometimes first of all, that's going to happen. It's human. It's not ideal, but it happens. It's human. And it helps build a little bit of resiliency in your kids. Your kids can't always, yes can't always be the answer. No is not a bad word. um, Done gently, preferably, but sometimes, you lay a foundation to build resilience in them when they can not like but accept things not going their way sometimes, or try to figure out a way to either wade through it or a way around it to make it go their way. You're
Right.
building resilience, and you're building a person who's ready for the world. It would be really nice if, this world were a wonderful place, and nothing would ever happen to our children, and they would never be um, see any kind of strife in their life. But that's really
Not the
not the
world we live
case,
in.
and it's not practical. And we may be moving toward it. I'm not so sure, but we may be. But it's not going to happen in their childhood lifetime. So we need to help them gain the resilience to overcome these barriers that they're going to be faced. Um,
And how do we do that? How do we teach them resilience? How do we
it's
teach the parents to teach them resilience? I
Well,
think we have to
that's the
start
first
they
step.
have to start with teaching the parents how to be resilient.
Correct, which is what I found out very quickly. So it's think about, and a lot of it is reflection. We have our brains have neuroplasticity. We can change our ideas, and once we accept that fact, because some people do not, uh, you take baby steps to moving toward it.
Hmm.
And for each person it may be a little bit different, because again, like with every kid, every situation, every parent, no two things are alike. But there are basic cores that you could do to build resilience. That no is not a bad thing
Right.
necessarily.
No.
Yeah, losing your temper, though not ideal,
Happens. It's a normal
happens. It
reaction
happens.
sometimes.
Sometimes it's a normal reaction, and not to beat yourself up about it, not to, figure out figure out your plan for what's going to happen. Like, if everybody has boundaries, and it's when you let people push against your boundaries
Hmm.
because you haven't defined them for yourself, that you basically lose your temper, or you're hungry, or you're tired, or you're overworked. I mean, there's a lot of, but somewhere you're breaking your boundaries. So when you know your boundaries and you can stick to them, you'll be less likely to blow up. Like, if you know you need 12 hours sleep,
Right.
and it's all there. It's all there. So that would identifying, and then having a plan of action,
And sticking
or
to it, being consistent.
sticking, being consistent with it as much as possible. And again, forgiving yourself for your mistakes,
Hmm.
and not harping on 'em. A lot of times, and you apologize to your kids for when you go off, or when you do something, but it doesn't have to be a harping on thing.
Hmm.
It's like, oh, I'm so sorry, and then you feel guilty about it, and then I'll never do that again. But you will,
Sure.
because
You're human.
because you're human. But it could be as simple as, I screamed at you. That was not a good way to talk to you. I'm going to do better next time, or I'm going to try to do better next time. I mean, you don't have, I'm so sorry, because you'll get or what this was, the working the working parent who's not with their kid a long time, and they feel guilty about not being with them. So, and they'll come home tired, and they'll be short, and then they'll say, oh, I'm not, I feel so bad. Feeling Your kids don't need you to feel bad. Your kids
No.
don't need you to, your kids need you to love them. Your kids need you to be human. Your kids need you to be the best you can be. Perfection is a myth, or
Not
or
attainable.
or perfection is whatever you are. And it doesn't mean you can't tweak it. You can tweak it to it. If there's something you don't like about yourself, then identify what that is, and take steps to change it.
Makes
And your
sense.
kids seeing you as a leader, you'll feel better. Make yourself, and your kids will emulate you more. It'll be more of a, they'll I just lost my train of thought. I'm sorry.
No, it's
You know,
okay.
that they'll emulate you as their leader. You know, if you're not, kids need parameters. Kids need structure in their life, and each kid, depending on who they are, it's a rubber band. It's not a cement
Yeah.
fence. You know, it's not a cement block. So within those bounds, when they have too much freedom, it makes them nervous. It makes them anxious.
Yeah.
It makes them feel unsafe.
Yeah. Kids
And if
want
it
you to tell them, wants they want you to define boundaries for them and teach them right from wrong and let them make some of their own decisions, but within a context with some direction.
yeah, the sort of the methodology I have for confidence is that the four pillars are accepting. You have to be accepting of yourself, who you are, where you are. It doesn't mean that you can't better yourself or change things, but you have to accept so you have to know where you are, and your kids. You have to know where they are, and you have to accept them for who they are. You
Hmm.
know, they may not be scholars, and you could push them to it, and they can perform for a while before they fall apart in a ball of anxiety or get nervous, or not, but some kids, accept who they are, where they are. Then to build resilience for yourself and them is to think about how you react when things don't go your way. Um,
And
uh,
a lot of this
and
comes down to, I think, our own childhoods, how we were raised and the models that we had for parenting and what we've learned along the way. So I think I know a lot of my stuff, so to speak, when my kids were little came from the way I was raised. And when I saw that that was sort of replaying itself, I took myself to therapy. I started reading books. I cognitively was conscious about changing the pattern so that I wasn't doing the same thing because I didn't want the same result.
yeah, correct. And it's not, you don't negate your past, you don't forget about your past, but your
You
past
learn
doesn't have
from
to
it.
determine your past doesn't have to determine your future. And part of, your core values, your core values are what should guide you. But sometimes we don't even know what our core values are because we're getting so much noise thrown at us from everybody that we think we should be this way or we think we should be that way. And then your dreams, let them dream, let you dream.
Mm-hmm.
It's what keeps hope alive, and your dreams, if you work toward them, they baby steps, and they can be attained. They're not. So yeah.
Do you think there's an a push or a feeling in the last several years? I don't know how you define several. That parents feel like they're supposed to be their kid's friend. Do you see that a
um
lot?
I see that a lot. I do, and it it goes kind of back to what we were speaking about before, that they don't want their kids to be mad at them. And a lot of things, life is so busy that you want every moment with your children to be wonderful.
Right.
you
Not
know
possible.
you want to be buddies, you want to be but as we were saying, they need parameters, they need boundaries, and it's their job to push against them. And fingers crossed, I know this now, fingers crossed they will push against them so that they can fall back to them, because it doesn't really, if it's just following orders blindly, it doesn't work. But if they
Right.
can push and come back to it, they will do it. But yeah, it's they need you to be their parent. You could be their friends later in life. It'll happen. But when they're so confused in their immature little minds, no matter how old their immature little minds are, it's
Sure.
really hard for them to navigate this world. They need a rudder, and you need to be their rudder. And if you're their friends, my friends were the ones who took me away from from the
Exactly.
path of the
Exactly.
narrow.
My friends were the ones who taught me the wrong things to do in some cases.
Um,
I know
or
that
the,
I tell
yeah.
the parents of my students. I teach 11th and 12th grade, and I tell the parents, every parent teacher conference that we have, if your kids aren't mad at you sometimes, you're not doing it right.
Yeah. I used to
You're
say, if
you're
they say
supposed to
they
push
haven't,
against that.
They haven't told you they hate you because they need their push for independence. And again, it doesn't matter if they're 2 or 12 or older.
18,
You know,
same thing.
it's the same thing. They go through different stages during their growth that you need to hold them back when they need to push against. You know, you can't let 2-year-olds run in the street. It doesn't matter how, you know, it doesn't matter if you think that they could look both ways before the cars come. 2-year-olds,
No, they're
the
not going
cars
to
can't.
remember.
They're not. Or you know, or they're not gonna. Their judgment is not gonna be there.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah, the only time I ever hit either one of my children was a spanking when my son was 3 and ran across the street in front of a truck.
yeah.
And there was no way that he was going to understand that until my instinct was swat him on the ass. And that's what I did. And he cried and it was a big thing, but he never ran in front of a truck again.
Yeah.
I don't know if that was the right way to handle it, but it
Well, it
worked
was
in the
the right
moment.
way for you at the time, and that's what I mean. Would I applaud beating children? No. What you know? Do I
No,
think
it
that
was a
that was?
diapered tush.
But you know, it's we have to be less judgmental of each other. I mean, unless you
Hmm.
see a child being abused, and there's a
Of course,
very
there's a very
difference
big difference.
between a swat in the button and being abused. But yeah, we as parents, as society, it's not all or nothing. There's a continuum there, and we have to be supportive of others, even if they're doing things not our way. And what you see more often is you take 12-year-olds, they play baseball, right? So you see this, they have the games, and there'll be people saying, she never comes to his games. She's always just too busy for this child. She never comes to his games, and she may be working, trying to make a living to feed
Put
her
food on
family
the
or whatever,
table, right?
or whatever her reason is. And his games are really his games; they're not your games. And if he's only playing baseball for you, then maybe you should think twice about him playing. You know, he doesn't.
Sure.
If he's just playing it for the love of the game, then he doesn't need you there because he loves the game. If he's playing it to please you, then that's
That's
another
another
story.
issue. Yeah.
But then you go a little couple rows down, you'll see these group of parents saying, "Oh, she's always at the game. She doesn't let that kid breathe. She follows his every move." You know, it's they're just two different ways of doing things, and it's not what you're doing; it's why you're doing it. You know, it's so, and be supportive of each other.
Yeah, there's too much squabbling or too much judgment behind other people's backs and
Yeah.
oh
My
god.
theory is that, and even when I was teaching, when you're standing there and you see something and you feel the need to put another person down for whatever reason, it's because that's your insecurity. That's all about
Yeah, there's a
you.
trigger there for your
It's
own
not
thing.
about them. So maybe take a breath and figure out why you feel this way.
Hmm.
And you might, discover something about yourself that you didn't know or you didn't want to know, and you could fix it, move forward.
That's really good advice. That's really good advice. 'Cause yeah, I could see that
Simple
that
but very hard.
yeah, well, sure, because it's hard to turn the mirror on ourselves
Yeah. And then
and
that's what this is.
look
I
at
mean,
something that we might be
bas
doing wrong
yeah. Or
or
not
just
not
need
that
growth in.
or
Yeah.
that it's not settling right with us. It may be right
Hmm.
for somebody else, and you're doing it, but you just don't feel. Maybe you don't want to be at that game because you have something else to do, but don't want to be seen as that mom.
See, I used to go to all my kids' games, my son's baseball games, my daughter's softball games. I was a single mom and I would go and stay, but the only time I would actually pay attention was when they were up at bat or they were actually on the field. Otherwise, I just don't like sports and I could care less. You know, I would bring papers to grade and I would look up when they were at bat or when someone was pitching or, whatever. And
Yeah. Yeah, I mean,
it
sometimes
was
your kids
fun,
want you
but
there. Yeah, it was. It's the thing. I did not. Well, funny enough, did not like because I'm a New York City mom, so I did not like being in the park.
right.
Didn't like the park moms, but it was okay because I worked.
Hmm.
I was a teacher, and then I had a part-time job after that, and so it was kind of okay that I wasn't always in the parks. I was there. I had a little bit of a crew that I hung out with when I was there, and it was good. With my grandson, I'm in the park all the time. I just Just in the park all the time. It's
Well, it's different. You're retired now. You have a little more time.
yeah, yeah. And I didn't like the park because of that judgy all the
Yeah.
time. Like,
Yeah. When
as a
my
teacher,
daughter
I
started
felt
running track in middle school and then in high school, when she first got on the track team in like seventh grade, I went to a few of the track meets, and those suckers are long.
yeah, they
You
are.
could be there
My
for
old
hours and
son,
hours and hours, and her own performance was 5 minutes, and I'm sitting there for 3 hours.
unless she was really fast, and then it was even less.
And then, right, then it was even less. And then by the time she got to high school, she said, Mom, the parents don't go to track meets. They'll embarrass me. Don't come. I'm like, all right, I have better things to do with the 3 hours if you don't want me there. And then I'd
Yeah,
see on Facebook that there were moms and dads at the meets. I'm like, why don't you want me there? And she's like, because I know you have way more important things to do than to sit there and just watch me for 2 minutes and sit there for 3 hours. She said, I'll just tell you about it when I get home.
yeah. I mean, and that's I
I
applaud her
loved
for
that.
that.
I
She,
thought that
yeah,
was awesome.
yeah, that she took you into consideration. But that is someone who's looking not just into herself.
Yeah,
When we raise our kids to be too self-absorbed and selfish, it becomes that's where resilience will break down because they don't have any because everything has got to be about them. I mean, the hard part is figuring out when to let go and when to pull in.
hmm,
But again, if you listen to your gut, that it becomes a little bit easier.
a
You don't
little.
have to second guess every decision.
Now, is there a difference between a tantrum that a 3-year-old might have and a tantrum that a 13-year-old might have?
My feeling is no.
No. Okay.
My
I
feeling is
didn't
no.
think
It's
so.
the same. I mean, I know we break things into age groups, but basically, they're tired or they're hungry or they're overwhelmed with something, and they and it maybe and the triggers can be small depending on how tired, how hungry, how overwhelmed, or how out of sorts they are. Um, and it's them not being able to handle their emotions. Basically,
Right.
it's an immaturity. They don't know what else to do. So, I mean, adults have tantrums sometimes.
Of course. Yes.
Um, we call them throwing fits in my house, but but it's
Nice.
it's 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 this there's a struggle, and they didn't do something that they needed to do, for themselves, not externally, and they're having a hard time, or it's just that they're having a hard time hormones, they're having a hard time regulating themselves, and if what I think is if you give them the emotional development skills they need as they get younger. Not that they won't ever happen, because they're going to happen anyway, because they're going through a lot, hormones changing and this change, but it's not going to be a constant thing. Sometimes you have you're having a hard time. Let's say they're having a hard time, um, and you can distract, or you can talk them out of it, or they can talk to you. But sometimes when they're in the throes of it, you can't. It's like a car going through a tunnel. You have to get to the other side to get out of it. They have to finish it, and sometimes it's in embarrassing places. The kid throwing themselves on the floor in the supermarket or Walmart, or your teenager breaking down in front of his friends. And they just have to go through it. It's not. It seems it's not disrespectful. It doesn't have
They're just
anything to do
completely
with.
dysregulated. They don't know
Yeah,
how to
it doesn't
express
have anything to
themselves.
do with you. It's just
So,
about
what
them.
do the parents do? Should the parents try to intervene? Should the parent just let the whole thing happen until the kid exhausts themselves? What's the appropriate thing to do?
Well, the appropriate thing is it depends on each case, right? Because nothing. So if you're sitting there and if you start to talk to them, if you say, "Do you want to?" and you're getting the escalation of it instead of it's so you can't talk to them. So don't
Right.
don't try. You can't be rational with an irrational person.
No.
That's not going to work. And if they're in a safe place, with the little ones, the big ones, I kind of backed off a little bit, but with the little ones, I sit there I'll sit next to them and I'll say, I'm here for you, and let me know when you need me. And they do the thing of coming to you and then going away, and coming to you and then going away, because they don't know what they want, and then they come over to you when they're finished. With the older kids, you could do the same thing, and they might say, "I don't want to see your face," and then you can say, "Okay, I'll be in the living room if you need me, or I'll be in the." Um, and then maybe and I sometimes made the mistake, and then maybe you want to get something to eat, but that's not what they want to hear right then, because then it
Right.
has nothing to do with that, or whatever you think it might be. But yeah, but be there for them. It's non-judgmentally. Separate yourself from it, because the more you become attached to it, the more you become involved, the more you'll be
Feeding into it.
if you not and feeling bad about yourself too. It's
Okay.
not a it's yeah, it's not you. It doesn't have it. And when it seems particularly this happens more with older kids. For me it did anyway. When it seems particularly disrespectful, and they have mouths, and they you know walk away. I'll be in my bedroom if you need me. I'll be over there if you need me. I can't let you talk to me this way, though. I understand you're upset. I can't let you talk to me this way, or something to that effect. It's not a.
Right.
Uh, I don't believe in letting people abuse me either. But they mean, if they need to go through it, they need to go through it. Nothing you're going to do or say is going to make it better. It's gonna happen in its own time.
So,
I know. What?
it's hard. I'm just like I'm thinking of all
Hard.
of the
Yeah.
issues that my stepdaughter is having with her kids. Her oldest is now going into high school and
Yeah.
has had a lot of like oppositional defiant issues and lying and like misbehaving in ways that we really think he knows better. He just does it anyway.
Yeah.
And we don't, she doesn't know. I have no advice for her. I have
He may
no
know better.
idea.
He may know better, but not in that moment. His emotions are overcoming him, and opposition. And again, it's we love them, but we can't be invested in that behavior.
Hmm.
That's what to pull yourself away from it. He needs, if he needs to go through that, if he's safe and he's not harming himself or anybody else. Maybe he could have a safe space to do that in. Um, some kids, quiet spaces work. Just either a corner of a room. I moved it out of the way for them. I have a big floor pillow, a big floor pillow, and it was a good place for them to go when they wanted to be. When they went into and they were on that. Nobody went into the room. Everybody left them alone. They needed to be there.
Hmm.
Um, if you think they're going to hurt themselves or somebody else, the door has to stay open. If that's but other than that, nobody bothers them, and they come out to you when you're ready. But the key is that I am here for you when you're ready. I am here for you when you're ready. I'm going to give you a space when you're not. That gives them a little bit of ownership over it.
Hmm.
That you're not trying to get them out of it. You're not trying to make them do something they don't want to do. You're there for them when they need you. It's hard to go through. It's a hard thing to because you want to help them, number one, or you're angry with them, or both.
Right.
But yeah, but giving them more ownership of it is so they don't feel like they're being manipulated, because a lot of times kids feel,
Sure.
and a little bit we are trying to manipulate them. We don't want to be in this situation. um, and you could always, if they're of the mindset, you could talk about what happened. If what they thought it was, of course it was something you said or did,
Of
usually.
course, the
but,
parent's
but
always wrong. Yeah.
But underlying that, you think maybe if you were got more sleep, or do you think? But it has to be when they're in a calm, rational state, because
Yeah.
again,
Otherwise, you're reasoning with a chimpanzee. That's not going to happen.
I say
A
you might
howler
as well
monkey or
you
something.
might as
Yeah.
well bang your head against the wall, because it'll feel,
Right.
yeah, you get the
Right.
same result.
Now,
Yeah,
what about kids who, like siblings, who are always at each other's throats? They're always fighting, and they never get along. How do you deal with that?
yeah. Oh. Uh, well, again, that's that.
Mary, you're
You've
getting
been
all my questions, Mary.
you've been in my house. It depends. That I think also ebbs and flows, and it's sometimes their battle, and you have to stay completely out of it. Um,
I mean, it's their relationship. They have to decide whether they want a relationship or don't want a
yeah,
relationship, and
yeah,
that doesn't have anything to do with the parent. But you have to keep them from hurting each other, and they do have to live together while they're both still minors.
right. Yeah,
So,
I mean, there's certain rules you can set up that kind of go out the window when you're not home.
mhm.
Um, and again, sometimes but sometimes they need to argue and fight. You know, you don't want to hear it. Um, Sometimes when my kids do it, I would put two chairs opposite each other, when I would and say, "Okay, now you work it out, and don't get up until you tell me you have a solution." They hated that, and
Oh,
they would
that's
come,
interesting.
yeah, they would come to me and say, "He said she no 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 no. All your statements to me have to start with I."
Yeah.
That was something it's something I learned I did a conflict resolution class. So all their statements when they're having a problem, the statements if they want you to be involved, it starts with I.
I want
They
you to
have to
be
tell them,
involved. Right.
and it has to they have to tell you what their part in it was. Not he said did that, he did this. No no no. I blah blah blah. I went to the kitchen. I went to get a drink of water. I did this. I did that.
Hmm.
And the same thing with the other one. And they have to it's which is the hard thing. They have to keep their mouths shut when the other one's talking because they have to give them their due respect. They didn't like it so much that they prefer the chairs and ending the conflict and ending the conflict before I got involved. They mostly didn't want and mostly it's hard to you can't resolve things between two people if they have to resolve them between themselves. You can mediate it, but you can't
But
resolve.
that's it, right? You can't
Yeah.
force them to apologize. It's not going to
No.
be meaningful.
No, that's a pet peeve of mine. Telling a kid to say they're sorry. Even when I was in school, I was, there was I'm sorry. Sorry means is more than just a word. Sorry is a feeling, because you see the little, especially when they're 3 and 4, they push somebody and say, I said, I'm sorry. No, 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 that's not it.
No, that doesn't absolve you of the whole
No.
thing. No, no, no.
If you want to say something, you say, they're hurt. Do you want to say something to them? Do you want to tell them you didn't mean it? You want to tell them you'll try not to do it again? You want to see if they're okay? You want to say, there's a lot of things you could say, but telling somebody to say you're sorry is meaningless.
Mm, I agree. I agree.
I know you want to say something when your kid does something. I know you want your kid to do something to atone for it, but there's a lot of different ways to do that too.
Right, but your way of saying, do you want to take care of that kid? Do you want to find out if the kid is okay? Do you want to, you know, all of those things are teaching them how to be empathic, empathetic, teaching them how to
Yeah.
think outside themselves and for the consequences of their actions, not necessarily a forced fake remorse that they don't actually feel.
Yeah, and a lot of even when they do those things, there doesn't have to be remorse. I mean, it just has they have to have some empathy for another human being. Are you okay? Did I hit you too hard? I don't know. I, I mean, you get some interesting statements, but at least it comes from them and not from somebody telling them what to do.
Sure, sure. It just
I
reminded
mean,
me of a memory that I hadn't thought of in a very, very long time when my son he was always tall, thin, but tall. And when he was like 8 years old, he had been on like the little league team for baseball, but the coach also coached the town football league team for the kids that age. And so they recruited my son to play football, and he was really excited. And it was the first practice. And the coach said, okay, now you're going to run to the other side of that field and you're going to tackle the kid who has the ball. And my son was like, what do you mean tackle? And the coach is like, push him down so that he can't run with the ball. And so my son's running and he's looking at me sitting on the sideline. He's like, am I doing this right? And I'm shrugging because I don't play football. And the coach is like, come on, knock him down, knock him down. And my son was like, you want me to do what? Huh? So he pushed the kid down, and the coach was like, yeah, I knew you could do it. And the little boy started to cry. And my son, instead of continuing down the field to knock someone else down or whatever the heck he was supposed to do, he stopped to
And help the kid.
help the kid, and he like picked him up and helped him dust off his pants, and like he wanted to make sure he was okay, and the coach is like, you're not supposed to do that, and he ran off the field and he took his pads off, and it was like a movie moment. He kind of like threw them on the ground.
I'm
He's
not
like,
doing this.
I'm not doing this, forget it,
Sweet.
no.
That's nice.
I can't. He was just, you're always telling me to use my words and not my hands, and to not touch other people, and now you're telling me to knock them down even if they cry. It just didn't, it was so, it
Yeah,
was too much of a conflict in his
he
head.
wasn't meant to be a
Couldn't do it.
football player.
No, he couldn't do it.
Yeah.
Couldn't do it.
That's very sweet.
The coach was like all mad, and I'm like, what can I tell you? He may be the tallest kid, but he's also sensitive, so I'd
Yeah,
rather have that.
yeah, the empathy for how old was he?
8.
Oh, please, yeah. I don't know.
At
That's
least my
yeah,
memory is that he was 8. Could have
yeah.
been 7, could have been 9, but I remember 8.
Nice,
Funny,
nice.
funny, funny,
That's a
funny.
very sweet story. Did you ever tell it to him?
Yeah, yeah, he remembers. He
Yeah,
remembers. He was upset when the kid fell, and or he pushed the kid. The kid didn't fall, and
yeah.
you know,
It's
there's
not
sort
how
of
he
a
was brought up.
contract. You're all playing football. You expect to be knocked down or pushed over or whatever, but these were all like brand new players. They
Yeah,
had no idea what to expect, and
it's like
whatever.
little league where they're all like cockroaches running it this way and that.
Or moths, like going to
Putting them on. Yeah,
that was funny.
I guess my New York City's coming out. It's in cockroaches.
Okay, so let's talk about like homework.
Oh,
That after school torture fest that all the parents and those teachers and the students all come take part in. So, what do you suggest? I mean, I know what I did with my own kids, but as a parenting coach who helps parents and students and kid whatever make things better, what do you suggest about homework structure, or how to run the after school time so that the have tos get done with the minimum of tears?
so um, I had 4 kids. My kids were very, as all kids, they were different. So with my one son, I knew that he had to come home and do homework, and then go do everything else, or else it was never getting done.
Hmm.
Um, with my other kids, one of them did it before dinner, one of them did it after dinner. It depends on what works for your schedule and them. Um, I had a very which people yelled at me for, that homework was their responsibility, not mine. They had a set up place where they could do it, and they had their set time when they could do it. And sometimes it was 2 of them together, and sometimes it was 3, and sometimes it was 1. Um, Never 4. There's too much of a span. Okay, but but I just thought about that. But it was their responsibility. It wasn't mine.
Right.
And that thing where, can you check my homework? If you asked me if I could prove something they wrote, it was one thing. But can I check their homework was not. If I checked it, and this is where I had a little, even in faculty meetings, if they're not getting something and I correct it for them,
And the
they're
teacher
going to
doesn't
go.
know, they don't understand.
The teacher doesn't know, they don't understand. Exactly. So it was their work to do. If they asked for my help, I would help them, when sometimes after they finish, they say, or I would check them over, and I would sometimes say, this, and this, and this that is
Not
not
correct.
making sense, or you might want to look at this, and this.
Right.
And my second son always said, well, I might not, because
I'm just gonna let it go. Right.
I'm gonna let it go. Um, and that's how I had really, that there's an optimum time for them. I don't know what that optimum time is, and it doesn't always. It's not always set in stone, because some days, when the nice weather gets there, it's really, it becomes a little bit more difficult. But it was their responsibility. They had a place set up to do it, and it was their responsibility to do it. I would check it for them. I would help them if they needed help. I wouldn't do it for them.
Of course not.
Yeah, of course not.
No
You
teacher
say.
would do that.
um, uh, uh, um,
Well, all right. Most.
Most teachers wouldn't, but yes. So, when the grades become very important, parents do strange things, even if they're teachers.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so that was it. And I would get a note back, he didn't do his homework. Well,
That's his
there was,
responsibility.
it's his responsibility, and I don't know
Were there consequences at home when he didn't do his homework for school?
well, mostly he had to do it the next day. I don't know. I don't understand the not doing your homework. I know when one of my sons was in high school, he would he would leave before me. He's so stupid. I would go to work. I would walk to work. No, he was not thinking. He was actually very bright, and I would walk past him sitting on. He didn't think I said sitting on one of the steps, the stoops in New York, finishing his homework, and then going to school.
Why didn't he just do it at home? Why on the step on the way to
Because there
school
was probably something he wanted to do during. I
instead?
don't know. I don't know. No, he pushed the envelope a lot. Um, he grew up to be a very very kind, compassionate, contributing member of society. So
It's awesome.
sometimes you have to give them a little bit of rope. Sometimes they take that rope and wrap it around yours or their
Yeah.
necks. Yeah, but if there was work he had to do, there were things he lost during the next day. There was not the work had to get done.
Sure.
If you work it out with the teacher and their understanding of, especially um, that you're not home after school, maybe not necessarily, or maybe that you're working and they're out of school at 3 and you don't get home until 6, even if you're a teacher.
Right.
Let's face it, it's not the same schedule. But work out together what the consequences should be. Kind of, if you're on the same page, it works much better
Right.
than when you're not. Just, I don't know, that's homework, that's your responsibility. It just doesn't.
See, when mine were very little, like elementary school age, they'd come home from school, and I was a high school teacher, so I was home before they were home. Um, we would sit at the dining room table, all three of us, and my daughter and my son and I would be grading or lesson plans or whatever the heck.
Beautiful.
Teachers always had stuff to do, and they would be doing their homework, and it was all like parallel play kind of thing. And if
Yeah.
they had a question, they'd ask each other or they'd ask me, and I it was always like have tos before want tos. Yes, we want to go out and play, we want to do these other things, but we have to do homework first and get it out of the
Right.
way. I'm just one of these kind of people who I need to know that my have tos are done or I can't enjoy my playtime because I
Right.
feel like I have this thing hanging over my head. Uh, and
My
it was,
second son was not like that.
well, it was a very
Yeah.
regimented sort of
Yeah.
thing. We had our snack and we played a little bit, and sometimes there was music on, and it was playful. It wasn't like we weren't like robots or anything,
Yeah.
and I think it gave them enough structure so that once they were a little older and maybe there was an after school club or there was a
Yeah.
sports thing going on, and those times all shifted and changed almost on a weekly basis, then they had enough history where the have tos before the want tos became the habit.
Yeah.
and
Well, when my kids
and
were
even
young,
in
yeah,
graduate school my son was still doing it that way.
yeah.
So
When they were younger, they did it for that. That was the first thing that we got out of the way was homework. Whenever, when we get home, it'd be homework.
yeah.
Then usually bath and dinner. But yeah, it may not have been right after school, but as soon as we got home, that's how it worked. When I was in the after school program, we had the first must have been the first hour was for homework, and then they can go. There was 2 rooms, and then they could do other things. But some kids don't finish in an hour, and the parents would be saying, "I want them finished. I'm a working parent." They can't be in school for, and then
Six,
there was no
7, 8
break.
hours, and
8
then
hours to go to after school and go straight be in school. An hour is more than enough. They would have snack first and then do homework. But yeah, yeah,
it's a lot.
yeah. You don't understand. I'm a working parent. I said, guess what? Me too.
I am too, right.
And they said, but my kids are younger. I said, yeah, because my kids were born 19. Like, oh, come on.
Nice. That's a good answer. That's a good answer.
It's a trade-off. Um, you can't abdicate, your responsibility as a parent to others because you work or because you do this or because you have to. It's a balance of. I like to see it as a wheel or a pizza. You know,
Hmm.
there's a time there's a smaller, bigger slice for everything.
Exactly. So all over the country, in different phases, different states start at different times than others. I know in New York we still have almost a month left before school goes back, but I know a friend of mine in Idaho goes back next week. Um, what do you have any advice, any wisdom to impart to parents and kids as they are, maybe even teachers, as they are planning to begin another, I can't believe, 22-23 school year? Yikes.
Yeah. If you were totally off schedule, which most of us, especially if you're teachers, I think happen in the summer,
Mm-hmm.
to start to gradually move back to a schedule, so it's not so beastly getting up in the morning. And I can't stress a morning routine. A morning routine is a lifesaver for anyone who's not even a teacher. If you're working out of the house, or even if you're not, to get the kids up and out of the house on time, is to have my other thing was there was no screens in the morning, no TV, no screens, because that just pulls away time from everything.
Sure.
Um, so uh, that you just and whatever suits you. We always got our clothes out the night before, so we didn't have that battle. They got to pick what they wore uniforms, but when they didn't wear uniforms, they got to pick what they wanted, and that's what they wore. Where sometimes they're shorts in winter. My son,
There are
yes.
so many boys in the high school where I teach where even in the dead of a New York winter, they're wearing shorts.
I
They
don't
could
know.
be wearing a coat or several layers on top, but their legs don't get cold. I don't know.
It's a thing. It was a thing. I think we're moving a little bit away from that, but I'm not so sure. But yeah, but they chose what they were going to wear. It was out in the morning, getting ready to wear. So they got up and they had to make the beds.
Okay.
I'm a beast. I mean, I think that when you start and especially for the little ones, if you tuck everything under on the bottom really tightly, and they're not too restless when they sleep. They have to get really down to the bottom of the bed to be restless. They could just pull up the covers and I didn't judge how they made the bed as long as the covers were up and the pillows were.
Yeah, I think it's
Um,
it's a little, even if it's a little something seemingly meaningless, it is an accomplishment.
it's
We've
it's
at
it's
least
a it's a
done
win.
that today.
It's
Right.
a win for the day, and then they have their clothes and they got dressed. I, Sometimes they would help each other, sometimes I would help them, and then breakfast was big in my house.
You got to feed that brain.
Gotta feed that brain. um, I mostly packed lunches the night before when I didn't forget, um, and that was ready to go. They
Okay.
were particular about, they didn't most of them didn't they didn't like the school lunches, so I, I, I so they got lunches, or sometimes they packed their own lunches the night before if they had something in mind.
Yeah, I think
or
once
if
they get old enough, the
Or
more
if they
things that,
complained about what I gave them, then they packed their own
yeah,
lunches. It's like laundry. They did their own laundry. Once they start complaining that I didn't wash something, they did their own laundry.
yeah, once they are able to do the task. Yeah,
Yeah.
laundry when they were about 9 or 10 years old started being their own thing, and
My my youngest son was 6, I think, and at one point I went home and my two oldest ones said, "You didn't wash." They were doing something, and "You didn't wash just another thing," and I went, "That's it. I'm not washing your clothes anymore. Everybody does their own laundry." And my youngest said, "But I'm only 6." I said, "That's all right. It's pressing buttons. You could do it.
we'll
You could
put
do it."
tape we'll put tape over the ones that you have to push, right, in case you
And
can't read them.
that was it. They did their own, and they always not all of them, but at any given would want to help me cook. So they had an idea of working around the kitchen. So I have a little galley kitchen. It's not. I'm not talking about a
Sure,
kitchen.
sure, sure, sure,
Yeah.
sure.
So that's it. And they had responsibilities in the house. Making their beds was each of them. Clearing their table, clearing themselves from the table was another one. They were, they knew I was working. They were responsible for things, and I never gave anybody the task of dusting because I hate to dust, and I had to do it as a kid, so now nobody has to do it.
Yeah,
That
I had to
becomes,
do it too.
unless they like to.
So
But yeah,
you gave
they had
your
a little
kids
job.
chores to do, like they had to do.
Chores. I don't call them chores. Has a negative connotation to me. Chores is a drudgery, so they had
Sure.
responsibilities or tasks to do in the house. Uh,
Okay, that's a
yeah,
good idea.
I mean, it doesn't have that connotation for everybody, but it has it for me. So
Yeah. It does for me too, actually. I hadn't
Yeah, so
actually
I
thought
thought
about it.
we all need to work together to make this house run.
Mm. Do you believe
Um,
in like in organizing it like with charts and things, or do you just
that would be
little?
wonderful. I am just not that organized. That would be a job for maybe my daughter. She's very organized like that. Me, I was just like, I remember when my brother and I were younger, we had dish duty. We had to wash dishes. We didn't have a dishwasher in our they sticker our charts, the calendar. We would just have the calendar stickered for who did the charts, and I would always take mine off and put it someplace else and
Oh,
put it
good.
on. Yeah, but I once decided that they were going to have when they were a little bit old, not just a little bit older. I guess they weren't all in high school yet, but I guess at least one or two of them were. That I was not going to that they were going to be responsible for one day's dinner, one night's dinner. That I would, they tell me what they want. I would go out and I would shop, and they would make it. And my oldest son is actually a very good cook. He always liked cooking. He always helped me out. And the other two did. And the two younger ones did okay. The second son, we came and everything. I can't remember what he made, but everything was white, and I have white plates. And everybody looked at them and said, "It looks like prison food."
Nice.
And they were all saying, "I'll take up his day. I'll take up his day."
Don't make us eat that.
Don't
Don't make
make
us
him
eat
cook.
that.
It wasn't bad. It was just white.
Colorless.
Everything was colorless. It was just,
How? What did he even make that was all
I don't know. It
white?
must have been, it must have been a chicken breast that was just, poached or
Boiled or
something, or
something.
boiled. Pasta with butter. I don't know. Or rice, maybe. I don't know.
That's funny.
It was white, and there was no veg. Oh, maybe he had a salad, but the vegetable wasn't on the plate. I don't know. Because
That's funny. It's all white.
please, please, prison food. They called it. They called it prison food,
Nice. Okay.
as if they knew.
Well, let's not go there. Let's not go there. Wow.
Yeah, no.
I remember in eighth grade, my son was taking home ec and they did a cooking thing. And so he came home and he said, I want to make quesadillas, buy all this stuff. So I bought all this stuff and he made these delicious quesadillas, but he only wanted to do it the one time.
Yeah,
But now he's an amazing cook. He's
yeah,
24. I had downloaded all of my recipes and he watches cooking channel shows and he makes pasta from scratch and he does all he's amazing.
yeah. My
He's
oldest son too.
amazing.
He's with my mother-in-law, who's Italian, um, and they do all sorts of things. And he does them, and now she's gonna be 90. She's gonna be 90 August 10th. Amazing
Bless
woman.
her. That's wonderful.
And he does it now for her too. Yeah, so
That's awesome.
yeah. Eddie, my second son, still doesn't cook.
Well,
I'll eat it. You cook it. I'll eat it.
not for
He can
everyone.
make steak. He can make steak. He can make he can fry up things, and he can make steak, eggs maybe. I don't
Probably clean if someone else had cooked.
know.
No, not so
Oh,
much.
not so much. Not so much. When he was here, yes. When he's in his own apartment, nah, I've seen it. No, he's getting better.
The bachelor wash. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, basically, yeah.
Nice, nice. Okay. Well, we before we conclude each of the episodes on Permission to Heal, I have 7 questions for my guests. Are you ready?
Oh, I hope so.
They're all about you, Mary. So easy peasy. What 6 words would you use to describe yourself?
um, Tenacious,
Hmm.
caring. Um, oh, I stopped there. I had them written down. Memory, of course, is not one of them. Giving, thankful. How many was that?
4.
Blessed, uh, mom,
Good. There's 6.
grandma. Oh,
7. Mom, grandma. That's
cut
fine.
out, cut out. Oh, teacher too. You can cut
Oh,
out a
there you
couple of
go.
the others.
You're
Yeah, I
allowed to
said
have
that many
more.
times.
It's fine. What's your favorite way to spend a day?
It depends on the day, but my favorite way would be at a beach
Mm.
with a book in my hand,
Oh, that's nice.
and maybe if they had a cabana boy a cocktail.
Nice, nice. That was how we spent our entire honeymoon 5 years ago when my husband and I got married. We went to Aruba and we sat under those grass palupas for the entire day and just read. It was heaven.
That sounds
It was
nice.
heaven. What is your favorite childhood memory?
Um, there's so many. There's so many. I think I'm going to pick out one that's me corralling my older siblings to sit down on the couch so I could teach them what I learned that day.
Right, 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 right. We talked about this before. That's
Yeah,
cool.
yeah.
I played teacher and I played house a lot as a kid when I was pretending with my friends, and although I wound up being a teacher and loving it, this will be my 28th year, it wasn't something I ever thought that I wanted to do. I did all these other things first. This was like the seventh choice.
Yeah, I tried. I mean, this is what I always wanted, and I tried other things, but
Yeah,
this is it. Yeah, that was it.
yeah. What's your favorite meal
Um,
besides the all white dish your
no,
your son
that would not
cooked?
be my favorite. It depends on the season. I really like fresh seasonal food. A fish dish. If you give me a sea bass with a nice,
Mm,
beautiful salad, and whatever seasonal vegetables are around, I would like that. Prepared
sounds
well.
Yeah, yeah. Sounds lovely. What one piece of advice would you like to give your younger self?
Um, Go for it. Don't hold back. Whatever it is.
Nice. No one to stop you but yourself.
No one.
What is one thing you would most like to change about the world?
Well, I feel like I'm taking a little bit of a part in doing it now by making it better is a term, a kinder, more empathetic place to be. And I think by working with parents and kids, that's gonna one at a time, help. We
Beautiful.
need stronger. We need strong, confident leaders. And when you're strong and confident, you have everybody's welfare in mind, not just
Your own. Yeah.
or your own or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. Or your wallets. Yeah, absolutely. um, I'm going to add another question just for you. So we're going to have it is there well that would just be a yes or no. So
I
what
could elaborate.
okay.
I'll give you a yes or no because.
Okay. Is there any um parenting um examples from your own parents, the way they raised their children, including you and whatever siblings you have, that you have incorporated into your own life or your own motherhood?
Okay, that's an absolutely. That's an absolutely. Um, my mother died before I was 10.
Oh, I'm
Um,
sorry.
but what I have with confidence and what I am trying or what I am attempting or what I am actually doing with some of the people that I am working with is instilling in them the confidence that my mother instilled in me
Mm-hmm.
before she died. She knew she was dying. She had cancer. I didn't know it. I was a kid, but she led me to believe that I could do anything that I wanted to do. That I'm responsible for myself and my actions. It doesn't matter what anybody else does. That I should apologize if I am wrong in a sincere and heartfelt way, and that the good of the good of everyone would be part of my responsibility in life.
That's beautiful. I wish more people were raised by your mother.
Yeah, she was amazing.
That's wonderful. I'm sorry she
Yeah,
went so
and
soon.
I've carried it with me all these years. I've carried it with. I mean, this is it was so instilled in me that
That's
this is
amazing. That's amazing. Okay, the last question is really very shallow.
okay. Yay, let's do a shallow question.
Very shallow question. During the lockdown part of the pandemic, I think so many of us just were binge watching TV and movies just so that we didn't go crazy and climb the walls. So, what TV shows or movies do you binge now that you love?
I'm not a big TV or movie. It may always be on, but I'm never. But I said the one show that's constantly on. I know this is NCIS. You can find NCIS on any
Really?
channel on any given day, and so that's my background.
What does NCIS even stand for? Do you know? I don't have no idea.
Yes, it's no Navy. No, and
That's a Navy
Navy
thing?
Navy
Criminal thing?
criminals. Yeah, yeah, that's
Yeah.
it.
Wow.
It's yeah,
That's
that's it.
that's that's heavy. Nice.
On any given night, late at night, it'll be on my TV when I'm probably with my computer on my lap.
Okay. All right. I think it'll give me nightmares. You're a tougher constitution than me. Well, thank you so much for this, Mary. This was very
Thank you.
enjoyable and a really motivating conversation. Excellent.
Thank you. I love every moment of it, and thank you for sharing me with your audience and sharing your audience with me.
You're
It was
welcome.
really fun.
I'm so glad.
Thank you for joining me for this episode of Permission to Heal. I hope you found it moving and inspirational. Please remember, you don't need anyone else's permission to trust and follow your heart. You have the power within you. Subscribe to Permission to Heal so you don't miss any new episodes, and please share this with your friends.